You've probably heard the story about Martin Luther, right? The lightning storm, the vow to become a monk. But that was just the opening act. We're going to dive into a second, much bigger storm. Not one of lightning and thunder, but a storm raging inside his own soul that would literally change the world.
So, picture this. It's 1505. A brilliant young law student named Martin Luther is on the road when this absolutely terrifying thunderstorm hits. He's convinced he's going to die. In a moment of sheer panic, he cries out, vowing to become a monk if he survives. Well, he does survive, and he's a man of his word. He drops his promising career and walks straight into an Augustinian monastery. But honestly, that first storm isn't the real story. The real story is about the spiritual tempest that came after he became a monk. A crisis of faith so deep, so violent, it made that thunderstorm look like a spring shower. This was a war for his very soul. So, he's in the monastery. And you'd think the drama starts right away, right? Nope. What's so interesting is that his first year was peaceful. He found exactly what he was looking for. As he put it later, the devil was quiet for a little while.
Life was this incredibly structured, soul-soaking routine. The bell would ring at 2 a.m. That's right, 2 a.m., and his day would be packed with 7 different prayer periods, ending every night with this beautiful chant, the Salve Regina. This rhythm, this total devotion, it actually brought him a huge sense of calm.
And when he took his final vows, man, he felt this incredible joy. He truly believed he'd found the surest path to heaven. He felt pure, content, like he was finally on the right track. But that peace, it was about to be completely shattered.
So where did it all go wrong? Well, it all came crashing down during the very first Mass he ever performed as a priest.
Now you have to understand what a huge deal this was. People believe that at the altar, a priest performed a miracle that even angels couldn't do, literally transforming bread and wine into the actual body and blood of God. This was the absolute center of the Church's power and mystery.
So there Luther is, standing at the altar, saying the words, and suddenly he's just paralyzed by sheer terror. The absolute holiness of God, what he called the terror of the holy, just washes over him. He felt totally unworthy, like this speck of dust and sin daring to speak to the creator of the universe. He could barely even finish the ceremony.
Luther had a very specific German word for this feeling, Anfechtung, and there's really no perfect English translation. It's not just doubt, it's this profound spiritual assault, a feeling of panic, despair, and total abandonment by God. This feeling, this Anfechtung, would become the central struggle of his entire life. Afterwards, he's completely shaken up. He goes to his father Hans, who was still furious that he'd thrown away a career in law. Luther is basically looking for some reassurance, a sign that he made the right decision. And his dad's response, oh man, it was just devastating. He basically says, "Are you sure that was God calling you in that thunderstorm? I hope to God it wasn't the devil tricking you." That one sentence planted this horrifying seed of doubt that would haunt Luther for years.
So what do you do when you start to think your whole life's calling might be a demonic deception? Well, if you're Martin Luther, you don't quit. You double down. If he wasn't holy enough for God, then by God, he was going to force himself to be.
And he became the most hardcore monk you could imagine. We're talking about fasting for days without a single crumb of food, praying for hours after everyone else had gone to bed. He'd even sleep without blankets in the dead of the German winter, almost freezing to death. He was trying to punish his body into being pure.
And don't just take my word for it, he said it himself. If any monk could earn his way into heaven through sheer effort, it should have been him. But all that work, all that suffering, it brought him zero peace. It just brought him closer to death. He'd tried everything, and his own efforts were a total failure. Okay, so if you can't make yourself holy enough, what's plan B? Well, the Church had an answer. You could draw on the holiness of other people.
It was this idea called the treasury of merits. Think of it like a spiritual bank account. The theory was that Jesus and the saints had lived such good lives. They'd built up all this extra spiritual credit. And the Pope, through something called an indulgence, could transfer some of that credit to you to help pay off your sins.
And how did you get one of these indulgences? Often by going to see holy relics. And this is where it gets kind of wild. The system was incredibly specific. If you looked at a coin that was supposedly paid to Judas, you could get 1,400 years off your time in purgatory.
It was this very tangible, almost mathematical system for getting saved.
So in 1510, Luther gets what seems like the chance of a lifetime. He's sent on a journey to Rome, the very heart of the Christian world. For a guy wrestling with his soul like he was, this was it. This was his chance to finally find some peace.
But the reality he found, it was a complete shock to his system. He showed up full of awe and reverence, this devout pilgrim, and he found Italian priests who just didn't seem to care. They were incompetent. They'd rush through 7 masses in the time it took him to do one properly, yelling at him to passa, passa, get a move on. He even heard some of them mocking the holy sacraments.
But even after all that disappointment, Luther figured, hey, I'm in Rome. I have to do one last great holy act.
This was the Scala Sancta, the Holy Stairs. These were believed to be the actual steps Jesus climbed at Pilate's palace, and the promise was incredible. If you crawled up these 28 steps on your hands and knees, saying a prayer and kissing each one, you could free a soul from purgatory.
So Luther decided he would do this for his grandfather. He got down on his knees, he crawled, he prayed on every step, he kissed every step. He did exactly what the church told him to do. But when he finally stood up at the top, he didn't feel any spiritual triumph. All he felt was one simple, soul-crushing thought. Who knows if any of this is even true?
And that was the core of his crisis. He had tried it all. Quiet monk life, extreme self-punishment, the formal systems of the church, even the greatest pilgrimage on earth had left him with nothing but deep, profound doubt. He'd followed the map and it led him to a dead end. And that left him with one burning question that would eventually ignite a revolution. The answer, as he would soon discover, wasn't about doing more. It was about believing something completely different.